All right, we are live. So we're here with my great friend, Nick Seme. My name is Clay Raterman. This is the first episode of the podcast. I still don't have a name for it yet, so we're going to hold off on the name. Uh, very professional. But yeah, Nick and I were just talking before we started this. We figured we'd just turn it on and get going. We were kind of diving into the David Goggins randomly running 200 miles here. Before we jump into that, Nick is currently he's in PT school. Nick is one of my great friends. Nick and I both walked on together at Ohio State to play football when we were in college. We were both, 2 years now removed, 2.5 years removed from college?
3
years removed from
3 years.
Time's
2017.
flying. Yeah, so 2017 was our last season. 2018 is when we technically graduated. But that's how we really got kind of acquainted and became really good friends. And on today's episode, we're going to dive into the ins and outs of really what the difference is between difficulty in some of the things we've done physically throughout our career. So Nick and I we've been lifting weights for a really long time. We've walked on to one of the hardest Division I programs. We've tried ultra marathon running. So we're going to dive in and figure out really, from our two perspectives, what was the hardest physically on our bodies. And kind of to segue into that, we just saw, David Goggins ran a 50-mile race, and then all of a sudden, just on a whim, decides to go do another 200-mile race with, what was the guy's name? Dobbs?
Yeah, I saw it was Dobbs. That's all I know about
legend.
him. But
just his name.
Oh, I know. And just how it came up, of course, I'm finishing my Thanksgiving, right? I'm scrolling down on Instagram, and he's like, yeah, spur of the moment, 200-miler. Had a really good friend, aka Dobbs. He's doing his, second attempt at this 200-mile race. I thought, why not join him, right?
Oh my God! Like,
why not? Why not?
That just I saw the same thing, and I was telling Nick, like, dude, it just makes me like, I don't understand how he has the time to be able to just on a whim go do that. Like, people don't get it. Like a 200-mile run, like, how long do you think that takes? Like, well, not only the actual time of the race itself, but in terms of like recovery and all the stuff that's just involved in it. It's not like you're just giving away 2 days of time. You're giving away 2 days of time plus the recovery plus whatever else. Like, it's just such a big time commitment.
I would say weeks. I mean, until you're like fully back up and at him. I mean, maybe that's me. He's a machine of a human.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
My favorite part about the entire thing is I saw an update. I've been watching his Instagram updates on his live, and he's sitting there. He's like, yeah, I was running with Dobbs. I looked down. I had a meeting at 17:30. So I had to run ahead to the next aid station, beat him, so I could sit down and have a business work meeting in the middle. It was like, I think it was 40 miles in. The aid station was at 40 miles. So he goes past Dobbs, says, hey, man, I'll see you at the aid station. I need to get to the aid station because I have a business meeting.
Okay, so that just answers my question. Yeah, so that's how he has time. Yeah. I guess he's just an absolute savage. See, like, it makes me – I was telling Nick, because we've done one 100-mile race. And, yeah, we're not runners or anything, and neither was David Goggins. That's why we're so inspired by, his story and stuff. But, man, when you see someone that goes out there and is consistently on that grind, like, Nick and I are consistent, I would say, very consistent in what we do, but not consistent on the level of like, a 200-mile, because he just did a 200-mile run. Like, what was it, a month ago? So he's 200-mile run, 50-mile run, 200-mile run. I'm like, how does he have the time to hit all those long runs? Like, it took me probably 4 days before I was like comfortably walking
before I could get out of bed.
Yeah.
I probably couldn't comfortably walk for 7 to 10 days.
After a 100-mile run. It was our first attempt at
after 100.
Yeah.
Yes. Let alone 200. And I think it was a week removed from 50 miles.
Yeah, he's on another level. So to dive into that, let's let's go through, because, David Goggins has his own, and we're by no means comparing ourselves to him.
Absolutely not.
This is just a
Absolutely not.
fun conversation that we were having beforehand, because, it does inspire us to be like, all right, we need to be doing more. But so Nick and I, we were kind of having, talking at one point, trying to figure out what was harder between, all the physical things that we've done in our lives so far. So whether that's, the hardest workout we've ever had from a weightlifting perspective, whether that was college football, like walk-on days where you enter fall camp and you get your body beat up. Was it the 100-mile run that we did? Or was it we did a marathon without any training really, with no stops? And that was actually extremely difficult too. So Nick, I want to know, out of your life, give me this, give me the breakdown of a couple of the hardest things that you've done. And then we'll dive into, the ins and outs of what is the hardest so far.
So I think of this in two ways. I think of it physically and then mentally and really emotionally. I guess all of it combined in one. So I kind of break it down in different categories. So I would say getting on to the football team was very much a commitment, a mental grind. Like you kind of had to put in the work with no one watching and really know affirmation that you're actually going to be on the team. So you're kind of in your head a lot. And I really thought that was something that was difficult to adapt to, because no one's really pushing you to do that. It's up to you.
That's a weird one.
Right.
Especially as a walk-on, no one believes in you, right?
Right. Right. And so it's almost like you have to think of yourself as you kind of have to put yourself in that situation. So I would say for me, that was kind of difficult. I'm not going to say that is the hardest thing. I would probably say mentally and physically, hands down, it's the 100-mile race that we did.
Okay. So
I would say
what about
combined in the perfect storm, just in order to complete something, in order to complete the 100-mile race, I had to give literally everything that I had physically and mentally. Yeah. Not that I didn't have to give that at Ohio State, but it's more of ups and downs. It's more of the short sprints that you think about. And I guess you can break down a 100-mile race like that. But
there's definitely the ups and downs to both, but they last so with walking on at Ohio State, you're talking about the mental aspect, it being tough before you walked on really. But what about how hard was it, to keep up in practice during a fall camp, for example? It's notorious. Fall camp's one of the hardest times, especially at one of those Division I schools if you're a walk-on or you're someone who's getting a lot of reps during practice. So what do you think compared to I'm talking hardest part of football, fall camp, or the hardest workouts of football versus, and you have to include the longevity of, it's not just one day like the 100-miler. It's day after day after day after day versus the just sheer brute force of the first 100-miler you've ever done.
I definitely would say that there are workouts, like the Valentine's Day workout, you have mat drills, those things are super difficult, but fall camp is very, very hard in the sense that you walk in day one and you have 21 to 28 days of doing this. It's the duration of what Clay's talking about. When you go into a workout, you can be absolutely destroyed after 2 or 3 hours, absolutely beat down. Yeah, you have to get up and do it again the next day. But the duration is so much less. During camp, you're walking into the building, you're getting woken up at 5:30, 5:45, shuttled to the facility, and you're there for, once you get there at about 7 o'clock, you're there for 12, 13, 14 hours. And then you go to bed, you have a curfew, and then you're back up doing it again. So you are, fighting exhaustion. You're fighting just the mental fatigue of going through and getting beat down, whatever, position that you play. So I would say it is super difficult to rev yourself back up and say, today I got to do it again.
Yeah. Nick and I remember Nick, we literally used to go, we had it rough because both of us were we were getting hurt, injured, and we were just hiding as walk-ons. You don't get hurt. So we're just hiding the injuries left and right. And I remember like those mats. We would go hide on the indoor turf field during lunch and build a fort of these mats. We'd see Dwayne Haskins out there. We'd see all these other people who are now in the NFL doing extremely well. They're all out there also hiding and sleeping with us. We're all like building these forts to sleep in, trying to just get away. Like we just wanted to get away for a little bit and, reset your mind. And so Nick and I would go set an alarm and we'd hide behind these tractors and build this fort of mats to sleep on. And I just remember like every time because it's like probably 20-minute, 30-minute nap.
Bliss. Pure happiness.
Yeah. When the second that alarm goes off and you hear people over the microphone, you're like, oh no. And so fall camp was one of those times where like if you hadn't done it yet, I feel like the more times you go through it, the easier it gets, as with anything. But for fall camp, it wasn't like Nick, you were saying, it wasn't like it was like overbearing for one day. It was the fact that we had 28 days of it or 21 days of it straight, at that time. So it was like, our days were 6 a.m. We'd wake up at 5, get shuttled over on the bus, film, taped, practice by like 6 a.m. It was like a 6 a.m. day all the way to like 9, 10 o'clock at night. You'd get shuttled back to the hotel and you wake up again and it's just go, go, go for, just all those days in a row. So my body was beat down, but I don't know. I don't think it compares still to the 100-miler in terms of like sheer damage, even damage to my body. Like my body was broken on fall camp, but what about you for 100-mile versus fall camp body wise?
The thing that I equated to was there was never a day in fall camp, as hard as and as difficult as it was, I could get out of bed and I could walk and I can move. And I, obviously was able to practice again the next day,
And they're good about recovery too.
Right.
So that's huge.
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, you get enough downtime, and, you're able to eat, hydrate, sleep, whatever. When you're doing the 100-miler, that day of and those like following days, guys, I literally felt like I couldn't use my legs. Like I had to roll like a log to get around. I'm not kidding. I would crawl on my hands and knees to go to the bathroom.
Well, so I was in the same boat, but I think the easiest way to describe it, and this is again coming from, Nick, what were you, 200 and 220, 230 at the time? 235 when he ran the 100-miler. I was like 185 or so. So I'm significantly lighter, so a little bit less damage to my body in terms of impact. But I mean, still, I had I could not walk for several days. And this is also because we did this within, we went from no running at all to, 2 months and some change later, running 100-milers or running a 100-miler. And the best way I can describe is I think back to fall camp and I remember having really bad shin splints and, dislocating my shoulder or, different stuff happening like that. But those were all like one-off, injuries. And like, yeah, the shin splints were nagging, but I could take ibuprofen and use BioFreeze or whatever, and it would work. The 100-miler, the ibuprofen worked once and then it stopped working. So that's the way.
Is this accurate to say, I'm thinking about this here, if you condense those 21 days of camp into 24 hours, would you say it's that, like, think about like how overwhelming that is, condensing all of that. And it might be an exaggeration.
Yeah.
But just like,
I know what you mean.
It's like you go through so many different ups and downs, emotions, the inner struggle of telling yourself to keep going, but you go through that so many times in a span of a 100-mile race.
Yeah, it's like
you're like pressing on so hard, where like you're in fall camp, that like, all right, I'm in meetings for an hour, boom, and then you get a break, and then boom, you get a break.
Yeah.
It's like you get a second to collect yourself.
Yeah, and those rest stations, they're not.
What, 3 to 5 minutes?
Yeah.
30 minutes max. Like,
Yeah, no, those rest stations, if you're trying to do a 100-miler and you're trying to make the time and, do all that stuff, you are not resting at those aid stations for more than a hot second, it feels like. Like, you're there and you're out and you're up and going again. The difference, though, is, like, if you can condense that practice period of football, it's just a different type of mental battle and a type of workout, because it's like it's very high stress in those moments of football where it's like, a play is like 7 seconds long or whatever. So it's these like mental and physical, very quick bursts of energy. And then also lifting weights and stuff like that. But for football, I don't think you could even condense those days down properly. If you were to take the hardest part out of it and you say just practice for 21 days distilled down into 24 hours, it would probably be harder to, that would be impossible probably to just like, do that many sheer practices in that amount of time. But it's like a different type of, it's like saying, doing like a 1 rep max of something versus repping something, 100 times. It's like, when you do a
yes.
practice, it's this very high intensity, and hard workout for 2 hours or whatever. And then, 100-miler is this very dull, aching, long run. Like, you're barely even moving at some points. Like, you're just like, but when you're doing this small little run, it feels so painful at times.
And I think you touched on something too, in the mental aspect is something that I'm fascinated with. The thing that really gets me is when let's say you're 3 days into camp, right? And you have 18 more days.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like how you have to frame that in your head. And even when you're doing a race, no matter if it's a mile or half a mile, whatever distance, like before you start, or let's say it's a longer duration and you're only like a quarter of the way there, and you're like, oh shoot, I have X amount left. Like, how you have to wire yourself to keep yourself on track. I think that is the struggle.
So
For
how
me,
do you
at
do
least,
it?
mentally.
How do you chunk it down? Are you a guy that's like, well, let's do it in two ways. How do you chunk that down? When let's say you do 10 reps of a 15 rep
I
squat.
knew you
This
were
is
going here. I knew
this
you were
is
gonna
a
go here.
this is a good situation, because I
This
think
is
we're on the same page here. What do you do when you're at that point where your body's saying like there's no more, and how do you chunk down that rest that you still have to accomplish?
I would say, taking motivation out, right? Like
Yeah,
how I actually
motivation out.
frame the set. Yeah, because like you psych yourself up, whatever, and everyone's got a different why. If I'm doing 15 reps, I'm going
Yeah.
10 and 5. So I'm counting to
Yeah.
10,
Okay.
and then and then it's like I got 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5. I'm
Yeah.
not doing 11, 12,
Yeah.
13.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
I
in the
think
same
like
boat.
once you're going 11, 12, 13, like you're just telling your head like you're doing all these reps. Like your
Yeah.
body knows you're doing the reps because you're doing it.
Yeah.
But now it's like as soon as you tell yourself, all right, 1,
I just
you
have
got to
one more.
restart. Like you got one more and then one more. Yeah. Instead of like you
Yeah.
got 15, 16.
That's
I don't know.
so
That's just how it works
funny.
for me. That's just how
That's
it works
so
for me.
funny. Yeah, no,
Or
I'm the
if I
same
got
way.
8, I got 5 and 3.
So
Like
what
I
about
even
for
break it
camp?
down.
What about for camp? Like, you have 21 days of fall camp. What do you do to break that down? Let's say you're on day 8 and you're like, you have, whatever the remainder is. You have that many days. Like, how are you chunking down? You're on day 10 out of 21. How do you chunk down those last 11 days? What are you thinking?
I would chunk it down. I always like take something that I can look forward to. Not that I don't look forward to football. Like, guys, I really enjoyed the experience. I'm not trying to trash talk Ohio State by any means,
No,
but
it's
just
great experience.
purely trying to get, to try to be successful in camp. Um, Sundays were huge for me mentally because we are able to have a day off, whether that was a media day or, we got to have and see family. That for me was like, all right, Sunday was kind of like my reset. Like I would really, really be able to take some time for myself and be able to like swing back the how much investment I have, towards like calling friends and family. So that was huge for me. So say for instance, if it's a Monday, right, and
Yeah.
I got 5, 6, 7, 8 days before that next, time we get some time off, I'm breaking it down in like half a day. Like I'll go like, all right, I got to get up, go get taped, or even chunk it.
Ooh.
And like, I'll go like get up, eat breakfast, taped. And then my next one will be meetings. And then it'll be like, all right, then I have to do like, I break it up like really, really weird. I don't say like a day at a time, because
Same,
there's so
same.
many things that happen in a day that you have to chunk. I chunk it up more, because it's like you have to be so attentive and so focused. Otherwise, you kind of get lost in like the
Yeah.
day. Like
Yeah.
you have to be
Everybody
in the
says
moment.
like, everyone says, but see, this is the thing. Everybody says like live in the moment and like, be present in the moment. And that's like the most true thing ever, but it's really difficult to actually pull off, because when you like, if you're at day 10 and you have 11 to go, like if you can't truly trick your mind that today is the only day that matters, then you're screwed. If in the back of your mind, you're intelligent. Most humans are intelligent. They're sitting there and they're like, I can tell myself today is the only day that matters, but I know damn well I have 10 more of these to go. So I'm actually, I do something. If let's just take the fall camp as an example. I think we probably have a similar tactic where inside that day itself, I'm looking for, I almost think about it like I just have to survive this one hard thing, and then it's back to the easy things. So it's like I just got to make it through. The hardest part of the day is this practice. If I can just break that practice down, all I got to do is these 5 periods, and then it's easier. So I'm like, in reality, it's not these crazy days that I have to do. It's just this one really hard part that everyone's kind of not looking forward to. And if you can just get through that one area, then you're like, oh, I'm good. I made it through this area. You can kind of take the rest with, a grain of salt and just go through your day. But like for 100-miler, it's almost the same way, because you go through those crazy ups and downs. So when you're at mile 33, you can't be thinking, I have 70, I have 67 to go. You have to be thinking, I just have 3 miles left till this next aid station. If I can survive till then, I'll figure it out. And then once you get there, everything resets. It's like those last 33 miles that you just did, they no longer exist. You're starting 100% fresh from scratch. And if you need to draw on those 30 miles to be, give yourself a pat on the back, great. But I honestly don't even like to think about them. I pretend like I'm starting from scratch and I have this energy, this amount of stuff. This is like, I'm starting fresh and I just have to get another 5 miles to get that next aid station. And then we're starting fresh from there. And that's like, I chunk it down into those mini wins, because I know like if I can hit that small area of, just that little break in the grind, if you will, then I'm like, oh, I got this. I'm still alive. I'm fully fresh. I can go again. So like I remember distinctly thinking at mile, literally at, I think it was at mile like 29. I remember thinking like, oh my God, there's no way we're going to be able to do 70 more of these. Cause I was toasted at mile 29. And yeah, I mean, talk about your experience with the 100-miler. Cause Nick and I ran this together. So yeah,
And
run
shout
us
out
through
Derek too. Derek ran it with
Derek.
us. Shout out Derek. Yeah, I view it. I mean, granted, it definitely helps when you're going through it with other people, I would say. So like, you're going through it in fall camp, you have other people to draw on, you have other people going through it, you guys are all fighting towards the same cause. And so you can kind of draw energy from other people. And that's what I would attribute, like how we did is we were able to draw on each other. If you told me to go out and do the physical and mental tasks of fall camp, or go do the 100-miler on my own, I just have an appreciation and respect for the sport of people that can do that, because it is unbelievable what you have to put yourself to.
Yeah.
With that being said, I would say like the first 10, 15 miles, I think it was like it's almost like we didn't know what we didn't know. We had no idea.
Yeah.
Like it was so foreign, it was so new. And the fact that, Clay and I had played football in the past and had experience with football, we know that like fall camp is usually the hardest. So we were kind of wired with the idea that this is going to be really tough. Like, granted, we didn't know the scale. We didn't know exactly what we were going to do. We just knew that it was going to be hard. With the 100-miler, it's like, okay, yeah, that obviously, that seems insane. That seems crazy. That is definitely difficult, but you just don't know.
You
Like,
don't
you have
really
no
know.
idea.
You don't really
Yeah.
know until you
And
do
you can
it.
never, and you can never, ever experience it any other way than actually doing it.
Yeah, because you don't know how you're going to react when your body actually is fully broken at mile 81. You know, like, what does that really feel like? You can always think like I've had hard workouts, but you don't really know until it's broken, like what you're
Yeah,
going to do.
exactly. And so it's so funny that, and Clay touched on this, it was, he wasn't feeling too hot at 29, but then him and Derek were feeling amazing at like 44. And I
Yeah, it's
remember I'm like,
weird.
my feet literally feel like I could feel every rock like hitting in through my shoe. And I'm like, this is terrible. Like, I'm just thinking like
So
right,
weird.
right, left when I'm just running, because that's what I had to put myself in. I had to literally break it down to the actual steps to take my mind off of, everything else is going on. Like,
Yeah.
you could have had people running in the woods, like gorilla costumes, like all this stuff. Like, I had to be so fixated on something as simple as just movement. But then it's like it swings around.
It
So,
does. It is weird.
and we all experience it at different times. So it's a crazy experience, in many, many different ways.
So
But
I guess like to give them some background on it,
yeah,
again, like I had said, Nick and I were not runners. We picked it up to challenge ourselves. We actually wanted to do an Ironman, ended up running, a half marathon. And then we were like, all right, let's try to run a full marathon. So we went from like no running. We did like 7 miles. Then we did like a half marathon within the span of like a week. And then we hit a full marathon, no stops was the challenge, which was extremely difficult actually. Just due to our like inexperience in running. So we hit that full marathon, and I want to say that was like maybe, I don't know, a couple weeks into running. And then directly after we had finished that marathon, a month and a half later was the 100-miler. So we had signed up for it right after that marathon, jumped into this 100-miler, and man, we just had no clue what to expect. And what Nick was touching on is the amount of ups and downs that you have when you're going through that. Because Nick and I have had these discussions about like what's the hardest physical thing we've done. And without a doubt, I think it just, and in one setting, it's by all means the 100-miler. And it's those weird periods where like at mile 29, I'm dying. Nick feels great the whole first 30 miles. So I'm sitting there watching Nick and I'm like, well, I guess he's just going to crush this thing. And then I'm just going to be, completely destroyed. And Derek, our other friend that was running with me, he was also dying the same time I was. And so we're both sitting there thinking like, Nick's just kind of we're like weighing him down. He's just dragging us along. And I was even limping at that point. And then this guy on the trail found me and was like, offered me ibuprofen. And I don't even think I took it at that point, because I was like, I'm fine. I'm limping at 29. And then it's so weird because then, 8 miles or 10 miles later, all of a sudden the tables turn. I'm feeling good again. And Nick is all of a sudden dying and his feet are really hurting. And so everybody goes through their moments. And Nick, what was like the thing during your down moments that you consistently went back to try to pull you through those tougher times?
it bounces around a ton for me. It bounces around a lot. I would say family for me is probably the one that like always hits home. Like, I think it was too, just like we had family there. We had a videographer. I
Couldn't
had,
give up.
both of you guys. Like how bad does that look if I came out there? And granted, I'm not discrediting anyone that goes out there and tries something. I just didn't want to go out there and like, put up
Fail.
a goose egg per se. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a ballsy move to sign up for something. And, and like, I was like doubting. I'm like, I have no idea if I'm going to be able to do this. But it's like, you kind of have to
Respect for
back it
even
up.
signing up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
you
you
have to
do.
back that up now. So
How many people signed up with our group that didn't show up? Tell them that little fun fact.
how many?
I can't remember the exact number, but we had like a group. Maybe it was between like 8 to 10. I want to say.
Oh, our group. I thought you were talking
Our
about the
group.
entire
No, no,
race.
no.
I'm like,
No,
I cannot pull that number out.
we had a group, and we had a group chat even.
Oh
All these
gosh,
people were
don't
so
get me
interested. We're so
started.
interested in running 100 miles, and we kind of had caused this spur of. Actually, my friend, he's the one that showed us the race, and then we just signed up, and they're like, "Oh, you guys are crazy. You guys aren't even like runners," and then all these people signed, or at least said they were going to do the race, and just
Because they
backed
were
out.
people that have done these ultra marathons, so we were gonna like learn from them. They were gonna
Yeah,
like take us under the wing, mentor us, like show us the ropes, like, hey, this is how you kind of,
all backed out.
operate and manage it. Yeah, man.
Everyone backed out except for the 3 people that were not runners, which is me, Derek, and Nick. And so we show up there, and oh my gosh, like and to be honest, Nick, the hardest part for me was the sleep deprivation. By far, that was the hardest part for me. I'm
I
not
remember
like
that. I remember
like
that.
so Derek and I we were meeting Nick down at the we're meeting you down at those campgrounds. We're trying to we were just procrastinating the entire process of whatever we were supposed to be doing. So Derek and I, the race is on Saturday. It starts Saturday at 4 a.m., right? I think it was like
Yeah,
4:30 a.m.
correct. Yeah,
Yeah,
4:30.
so it starts Saturday at 4:30 a.m. And I wake up, I don't know, probably 9 o'clock on Friday, trying to get some sleep in. And then Derek and I go and buy all the equipment that we need. We didn't even have the right equipment. We went to REI. We asked this guy there who had run the races to just give us everything we needed for 100 miles. And thank God, shout out to Sam. He helped us out there and showed us everything we needed. So anyway, we get all our equipment. We show up to Nick's, and we haven't planned out our diet. We haven't planned out our strategy much. Like, we are so behind. And we ended up going to bed at, it was like midnight or 12:30.
Yeah,
And we had to wake up at, I want to say
2:30.
2 or
2:30.
2:30 to let in our videographer that we hired, to follow us for this race, and document our journey. So, yeah, man, we had literally my Whoop. I wear this Whoop strap. It calculates my, strain and my sleep and stuff. I had slept for 1 hour and like 19 minutes for the night before. This race starts at 4 a.m. and it goes till 10 a.m. that next Sunday. So it was over 30 hours of physical activity. And in order to do it, I had 1 hour of sleep that night before. Like, it was just, I mean, didn't that affect you? Because you fell asleep maybe 30 minutes before me?
Yeah, it definitely affected me for sure. Like looking back, hindsight, I'm personally not bragging about it. It's not one of the smartest things that we did, kind of prepping for an event like that. But
No, you
um,
not good. It was a terrible idea. What is
yeah,
the
we're
hardest
not
part
like
was
showboating. Like, oh yeah, off of one. No, like do
no, it
not
was
do that. It
awful.
was kind of like it was a culmination of a lot of things though, because my parents got a campground close by to the start of the
Hmm.
race, so they had to sign up for. They were like kind of scrambling to find somewhere in close proximity, so they could come back to the RV, get stuff that was in the refrigerators, bring food out. So they were able to. They ended up finding that like last minute on like Thursday. And they had to work and stuff too, so they dropped everything that evening and drove up there. They had to get set up and they made dinner, and so by the time all of that kind of happened, it was already about 8, 9 o'clock, and then we were prepping our bags for about an hour or so because Clay and Derek had to drive up from Columbus, and so it was like one of those things where it was a lot of different things that it's like we were able to put it together last minute, but
Yeah.
it definitely impacted our sleep.
Yeah. When we were running through the night, the second night, I just kept getting so many. We were all getting those hallucinations, and I just the hardest part was just staying awake to keep moving. Like there were so many times I'd fall over, or I'd start to fall over. Derek would fall over, just off sleep deprivation alone. So that was the most difficult thing for me. But there were so many moments where, you know, you would take the lead and you'd pull us along, or Derek would take the lead and he'd pull us along, and we'd all just like have these weird moments where we would switch off, like who is the person that's going to be guiding us and who's going to pull us through this, because we didn't have a pacer, which is usually like a person who's like fully awake and they're kind of guiding you through and like setting the pace. We just had the three of us as a group, and we figured that would be fine. It would have been probably a little bit more helpful to have a pacer, but I don't think it would have really changed all that much for us. But we did, run off trail a few times. How do you deal with those situations where things aren't going ideal and, it's too late? Like you're too far into the challenge to look back now. What do you do when you're in that really low point and you've come too far to give up, quite literally?
I don't know. I guess I kind of I don't blank out, but I like remove myself, and it's almost just like a fixation and a focus on the task. Like it's not like fixating on the race. It's not I have to complete so many more miles. It's like literally focusing on the things that I can control and that I can do that lead to the result, but I'm not thinking about the result. It's like when I'm running, it's like I'm literally like, all right, I'm being mindful of the steps that I'm taking. I'm staying on track. I'm keeping my eyes up. I'm watching the course. Like I'm not focused on the mile or how many more miles we have. It's good to know at certain points. I would definitely say that I was curious of where we were several times, but I would definitely say when it's really starting to get hard and it's really starting to get tough, it's almost being locked in to the controllables.
Yeah.
And that's it. That is literally it. Because as soon as you start focusing on things you can't control, then it's almost like a snowball effect to where since you're not focusing on those things, then you start getting those thoughts that creep in, or maybe you're paying more attention to the pain that you're going through.
Yeah.
And then it just spirals, because then you're focusing on, oh shoot, like maybe I wasn't doing my nutrition, or maybe I wasn't eating anything.
Yeah.
So now I'm cramping. Now I'm in more pain. And now it's like you just get filled with these negative thoughts of, now I have 15 more miles until my aid station. How am I going to do this? Oh my gosh. And then it's like, that's it. Like that's so hard to get out of at that point. And I try not to get to that point. Like there's times where it's difficult, but it's just difficult because of duration, intensity, and what you're doing. It's not necessarily like you pigeonholing or not pigeonholing, maybe digging yourself a hole. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It's the same process almost of that chunking it down method. And like, that's been talked about so many times, but I don't think many people articulate how much you have to chunk it down. Like when we were in, the middle of the night and we're looking at our pace, we're like, we're not going to make this on time. We're literally, we don't even care anymore. We were just sitting there. I remember at, mile 76, looking at the thing, like we have to make it, 3 more miles to get to the next aid station. Let's just make it there. And then the way we would make it there was run from this tree to that next tree, and then we can walk again. And then we would look at each other and be like, we have to run to this next tree, and then we can walk again. And, it wasn't even breaking it down 1 mile at a time. It was this next tree. Let's just try to make it to this next tree. And
that was like maybe 25 yards away.
25 yards away.
25 yards. Maybe.
Killing ourselves to get there. Yeah.
And you had to bring it like,
yeah, bring that energy to get that 25 yards.
Yeah, it wasn't like, all right, guys, like, you got 10 sprints, and you're like, all right, yeah, one more, I'm feeling it. It's like you had to muster it up, and you're like, I don't know if I can do another one. You're like,
I don't think I can do another one. And let's just get to the next tree.
Yeah, you're like going through using the trekking poles, like, oh man,
Yeah.
but that's when you kind of tap into the energy of the other people. And I think the comedic aspect, or just being able to have a sense of humor and make the moments lighthearted, for me, that's a huge thing. Like, a lot of people, have the rah juice energy. A lot of people talk about that, the motivation that you draw upon, during any difficult event in your life. But it's almost like your outlook in not only being positive in the pursuit of your goal, but being able to be like happy and, make jokes, even during the hardest things you're doing. I think for me, it's like, if you can make jokes when stuff is going, in the right context too, like there's definitely a time and place. But I think it's so funny when you're like, you're sitting there and you're like laughing, and my parents are asking, how are you feeling? And you're like, I feel great. And you're like, but really, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
But, it's like those things where you're kind of covering it up and you're almost tricking your mind. And it all goes back to that game.
Yeah, someone said, how do you define mental toughness recently? Somebody asked me that. I put a post on my LinkedIn about it because, the three of us, me, you, and Derek, we always had we have that inside joke where we're all like, we do that super maniacal, like Dr. Evil type laugh whenever we're doing something hard. So I said, like, the best way to describe mental toughness is maniacally laughing when you're doing something difficult. Like, it's a sarcastic, like, evil laugh that it's just like that feeling of like, you're not taking it that seriously, and like for a fact you're gonna get it done regardless. Like, you don't care if it's gonna be hard or painful, you're gonna laugh at it instead. Like, you're gonna think it's funny while you're doing it. Now, but there's something, so that works really well for us, like me, you, and Derek. But there's also something super powerful about, and I think this is why people complain a lot. There's something really powerful about suffering together. Like, me, you, and Derek being in the woods, suffering together, like taking a dump in the middle of the night and, being in just the most amount of pain ever. And, Derek's like trying to grab me and pull me up while I'm trying to take a dump in the middle of this trail. There's something like that.
Don't ask about shorts.
Yeah. Derek didn't even let me wipe in the middle of the woods. I had to run the last, I don't even know, 15 miles. Just bad situation. But anyway, there's something about suffering as a group that almost makes it like, that's that brotherhood feeling that you get from football too. So that suffering as a group, sometimes the not funny stuff, and when it does get really hard, it almost makes you feel like you're closer to those guys you're with and you're helping pull them along, but it can turn toxic really quickly. So it's okay to have that suffering feeling and know that you guys are going through something together, but you got to be able to turn the switch again and then pull it back into that, that lighthearted stage. Because if you go too far down the suffering route, we end up getting pissy with each other. Like which is bound to happen. Like, you can't control your emotions that well when you have no sleep and you have been running for God knows how long. But how do you think that plays into it? Because we had a dynamic of the three of us where you're feeling good when I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling good when you're feeling bad, and Derek's feeling good when we're both feeling bad. So it's like this weird thing of, wanting to push each other and pull each other along. But at the same time, it's so hard to do that when people aren't in this, you don't know how their body feels. You've ran the same amount as them, but you don't know like what injury they're going through. How do you deal with the emotional aspect from like arguments, like between me, you, and Derek as we're going through it? Because it's not always sunshine and rainbows. Like, there's moments where we're all pissy at each other, and that's just part of the nature of the, what we wwere doing.
I think it comes back to just being aware, and then kind of like tapping into myself and focusing on the task. Because like for me, it really is a reset. It's not only a reset for, chunking down a race, but it's also almost like, once I focus back on what I should be focusing, it's like, all right, that stuff doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Or or, hey, we need to really focus on this. And you guys did a really good job of that too, to where, you know, maybe I'm starting to creep in. I'm like, and I might make up a comment, or you guys might ask me how I'm doing, and I might say something that
slip up.
that if you guys don't nip it in the butt, then I'm just
Yeah.
going to keep kind of going through it. So, you know, for me, you know, and having that brotherhood, or, you know, the group of people that you suffer with, it's like, first off, have the right group of people. That's a whole nother topic of conversation. But
Yeah,
at
if
the
you can
same time,
pick, choose wisely.
yeah, exactly. But I would say it's almost like being aware, and being to just snap and be like, okay, I got to reset. Now you're going to go down a bunch of different avenues while you're going, but you just have to take that split second to just get back on track. You know, you might veer, but you just can't go all the way left or
Yeah.
all the way right. It's going to be like this little windy path up, down, side to side, but it just can't absolutely derail you. And
Yeah.
like, yeah. So,
Well, so if I'm like, as an example, you know, we're at mile 68, and you guys are pulling ahead, and I'm, you know, being pissy about something's happening to my foot, and I'm lagging behind. What is going through your head, and the aspects of, okay, I know he's really annoyed right now, and I'm feeling okay right now. How can I, you know, correct this, you know, recorrect our course to get him back on the right track mentally? Or are you thinking, I just got to let him have his time, and then I got to focus on me, and then we'll both merge back together? Because like you said, you know, first and foremost, pick the right group of people to be around. But a lot of people in like football teams or leadership or work, most teams that you're on, you didn't pick the team. So luckily for us, we picked the right people because we knew our team and we knew the squad that we wanted. But from a perspective of people that maybe, you know, replace me with someone that maybe you wouldn't like as much, how do you go about handling the situation when people are arguing in this really suffering, tough, gritty situation where we're trying to accomplish a goal?
yeah, I know that we talked about this before, because I know at least Derek brought it up, because he's like, guys, if I don't talk,
Yeah.
or like if I like lash out at you, like, one, don't take it personal, and two, like, I don't
Yeah.
get motivated by you yelling in my ear, you know, telling me, come on, Derek, go
Yeah.
faster, you know, go harder. Like, that's not how we operate. So I think, like, for me at least, setting the expectations, because obviously I didn't go through this with you guys before ever in my life. So just kind of having some sort of idea of what either A, motivates you, what helps you. And so by knowing you guys and what works, overall, the overarching thing for you guys, and I think me as well, was just seeing that it can be done, or seeing that you can go further because the person next to you is going further and going through it. So it's almost just like that affirmation and that realization that you're like, okay, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. And that's what will be like getting you further. And so
Well,
I was almost like trying to lead by example, or
yeah.
just basically not motivating you by telling you not to worry about what you're probably worrying about, or be like, come on, don't think about your foot, or come on, don't, you know, stop hurting. You know,
Yeah.
it's like saying work harder. Like, that's not tangible. So I'd be like, all right, guys, hydrate, you know, or all right,
Yeah.
guys, form check. Like, when you're
Mm-hmm.
running, like making sure you're hitting the correct steps, and you know, using your arms. So it's almost like giving little interjections, like sound bites, stuff that we learned at Ohio State, like just quick pieces of information that you can just keep recalling and keep counting on. But it's like it pulls you out. It pulls you out, because you're like,
Yeah.
all right, I got to hydrate. So that was, for me, it was just kind of like understanding that someone was going through it, and then giving them tangible things to focus on.
Yeah.
That
Redirecting their focus. Yeah.
redirecting, instead of like, come on, like, you can do it. It's because then it just, I feel like
Yeah.
that just
Yeah. Don't
feeds
argue with
the,
them, you know?
yeah, because like, one, I'm not going to
They're going to
help
drag
you.
you into the negativity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That, or
And
I'm
you're
just going
not
to make
pulling
them
them
more
out of it.
pissed. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
going to piss them off more.
Yeah.
Like,
Especially like I think you nailed it with the very first thing you said. And it all comes back to self-awareness. And the best time to address, what we're going to act like and how we should treat each other when we're in the worst scenario is when we're in our camper and we're in the better scenario, when we can say, hey guys, by the way, we haven't run 100 miles together before. I don't do well with, people yelling at me about this and that. Like, trust me, we're all grown men. We all know how to, handle ourselves and our business. So Derek was a great example. I had yelled at Derek at one point because he was taking forever at this one aid station, and you were destroying both of us. So I'm trying to catch up to you, and I'm in kind of in this in between where I'm like, Derek, come on. And he's like, I'm trying to fill up my water because he's can't get his water figured out. And you're waiting on me, trying to pull me along. And so I'm yelling across the street, and he comes up to me. But this is the good thing about Derek and I's relationship. He's like, hey man, stop yelling. It's such an open line of communication between the two of us because, we have gone through some stuff together. We've gone on runs together. So between me and him, it's so easy to just be open and honest. Like, hey, this isn't helping me. Like, you yelling is not helping me.
And why? And the thing that I come back to, it's like, and it might be in retrospect more so, but why would you want to try to figure out how you cope and how you respond and how you're motivated in the hardest time? Trying to figure out how someone else can motivate you in the hardest time. And I guess it's like, it depends, I guess, what you're going through and who you're with and your comfortability with them and your relationship. But it's almost like, why not kind of draw the line or give expectations?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
so then you're in the heat of it. At least you have something to recall on. Otherwise, it's just.
To be a good leader, you have to know all of the people that you're working with. Like, being a good leader for us, all three of us were leading. Like, we were all leaders at different points in time. So in order to be a good leader, we had to just know, okay, how does Nick react? How does Derek react? The best way to do that is obviously going through stuff together. But on top of it, it's, figuring out beforehand what works for that person. Because it's the same in football. Like, some people do terrible when the coaches just sit there and scream at them. And some of them could do 10 times better if the coach is sitting there breathing down their neck. So it's this weird dynamic of different stuff work for different people. But I almost feel like when we're in that 100-miler phase, and all of us have those heated emotions, and we're like, I'm going through something, and you kind of think, this person doesn't understand what I'm going through because I have this pain in my body right now. I have this blister. It could be anything at work. This person doesn't understand me, and by that person trying to be the leader right then, trying to tell you to, hey, just feel better, just be like me, it makes you even more pissed off. You're like, well, I wish I could just be like you. I wish I could just be in your scenario right now. So I think, like you said, number one, best thing you could do is, first of all, know your guys before you go into that negative situation and how to handle them. And then number two, understand that these are going to come up. If you think you're going to go through without these situations, then you're just dreaming, because these emotional moments, and this is with any time you're suffering, these types of emotions and these situations will pop up. And then lastly, it's just like you were talking about, it's redirecting the person's focus in a way that's going to help the whole group. So that, maybe that one person is naturally a complainer, and you're naturally the kind of guy that's like, I'm not going to give my pain a voice. I'm just going to be positive the whole time. That person's going to get really pissed off when you're just spewing positivity, and you're going to get really pissed off when they're just spewing, complaints. And so understanding, maybe both you guys are both extremely mentally tough. You're both going to hit that goal, but understanding each person's style and knowing how to redirect the focus away from these emotionally charged situations, and being able to say, like, hey, let's just focus on, hydrating right now. Let's focus on our steps. Let's focus on this. Redirecting people's attention is really important into, controlling their emotions. And I think we all kept doing that to each other, like unconsciously or subconsciously. We were not knocked out. Subconsciously, we were running on the trail, and like, Nick would be, there was one point where Nick, you tore right, we're like running and I just look over and Nick's like falling over. His shoe is blown out. He tore through his entire shoe. He's just running like with his foot hanging out of the shoe.
Owes me a new pair of Bondies, man.
Yeah.
That was it. It was like, say for instance, here's my shoe, like the lateral side of it. It was from like basically my big toe all the way around the rim on the upper sole or upper part of the shoe, and it wrapped all the way around to the heel. And so like if I just at all had any sort of movement, and we're going on trails, like I would get so mad too. I remember being so pissed because I'd be like rolling my ankle like every time, like dang it. And then the other part was I had these trekking poles that weren't metal, they were plastic. And I remember like I had to physically get myself out of this. Like, guys, I actually struggled with this. My trekking poles kept going in, like they wouldn't keep their fixated length. So when I was pushing down and they were collapsing. And so I wasn't getting any propulsion or any support with the trekking poles. And I would get so pissed because then I had to pull them. I'm like, we're still kind of trekking and jogging, and I'm like trying to pull them out. It's like dark, 2 in the morning, I'm tired, like I'm like, But exactly. But I needed to call on you guys.
Yeah, because
if you just said, "Hey Nick, don't worry about the shoe," I would have said,
and like what good is that going to do any of us? Obviously, that's going to make you think more about the shoe. Instead, I would just stand next to you, and I was like, "Hey, have some of my water, or do this or do that, like different things to refocus our attention. Hey, we're coming up on the next aid station in a mile. So
this might be a transition, but it just popped in my head. Kind of going back on the football side, or maybe comparing the two. For me, I had, I guess, like a level of anxiousness or like fear of doing wrong. Like and I guess it might not compare completely, but with the 100 miler, the expectation of you is very clear.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's to finish.
You got to run 100 miles.
When you go into maybe, sports and you're trying to navigate, whether it's sports or jobs, or you might not always know the expectation of you, or maybe like walking on, you get on the team, you're not really sure of the atmosphere. You're not sure like how to really function in this hierarchy of a system. So it almost instills this like kind of panic, like you don't want to be late.
It's anxiety.
But
hold on, because I think I'm on the same page as you, but I think I don't think it's about the expectation. I think it's about performance, and I think when you're running 100 miles, it's just effort. It's just, I'm sure there's there's a couple things, but predominantly the 100 miler is a test of willpower and effort. Like, can you give enough effort? And all you have to do, there's no like for us, we weren't trying to win it. So there was no performance aspect to it where it was like this grandiose performance. We could just give as much effort as we want and get the result we wanted. Versus in football, you could give as much effort as you could possibly ever give and be a total failure. And that is what's scary about football.
Yeah. Okay. Because you hit the nail on the head perfectly, because
I knew exactly what you're talking about, because because that's the best way to describe the difference between the two.
Because but then again, that I give the edge to football on that.
Same,
like
100%.
Instilling like a, not that my heart would be beating a little bit faster each day, but it's almost like you have to be there at a certain time, and it's like you have more like check off things to do.
More people.
You got to make weight. You got to be in the building at a certain time. You have to make good grades. You have to go to study tables. You have to be at practice. You have to perform well. You have to do your assignment, do your job.
It's other people counting on you. There were other people's expectations of you to perform. And if you didn't perform under those expectations of, and this can be anywhere from showing up on time to the weight room and your coach yelling at you, or you're in the crowd of 100,000 people and you just dropped a wide open touchdown or something like that. So the expectation is so great with all these eyeballs and all these other people on you that pressure to perform is so high. Versus for the 100-miler, it almost was like the nicest relief I've had in a while, where it was like, hey, who cares? What this is between you and you. And, while we had our families there and we wanted to do well, this is between you and how much effort you can give. If you give all your effort, you can't really fail. You can fail. Obviously, you can drop out. There's a lot of ways you can fail. But if you give the 100% effort, the results typically,
the correlation
90% of
is
the time,
direct. It's
it's gonna go in your favor.
Like effort and performance, boom, like you're going. Like,
that's not the case in sports, though. Not the case in football.
Because
and
the performance
even
is
in ultra
dictated
running on a high level, it wouldn't be like that. But
right.
But for us, just trying to finish a 100-mile race, it was just effort based, which was nice.
Yeah.
But I still, to that point though, you're right. I would give the edge. Like, football's harder in that respect. There's way more expectation on you, and there's no way to deal with that because you don't know if you're going to perform well. Like, you can practice all you want. You can give 120% effort. You can give 100% effort in the weight room. You do everything right, like we did. We literally did everything we could do as well as we could do it when we were on walk-ons on the team. But that doesn't mean we're NFL players.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean we're Heisman. That doesn't mean we even, we start or we did everything we could do, and we're not the best, and we're not getting the result that we had, so hoped that we got.
So this is going to be a loaded question. This is the one that I get here and there, and I just preface this with, like, the things that Clay and I have done. It's, we want to show other people that they can max out their potential in whatever it is. It doesn't have to be sports. It doesn't have to be ultra marathons. It's just proving to yourself that you have more within and that you can do it. So these things that we do, we're not trying to go out there and be like, haha, look at us, or look at what we can do and give the credit to us. It's like, we're just exploring everything the human body can do, and we're fascinated by that. So my question is what do you say, or what are your words of encouragement for people that say, oh, that's just Clay. Like, Clay can just do those things. Or, oh, Nick, Nick can just do that. Because I don't know if you've ever gotten that before, but I've gotten it once or twice. And I'm not saying it because, or like a reason to brag, but like, I'm very much of like wanting what's best for everyone. And I'm like, I want to push you guys. Like, I want you guys to do the very best. But sometimes you get a little bit of pushback.
Yeah.
Because some people are like, well, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not you. And it's like almost like you being like this ether in the world. Like, you have no idea. Like, it's just like this. I don't know.
Trust me. I wish we were on, or I was on that level of, and honestly, to be totally honest, I think from just a physical specimen level, you're on a different level than I'm on in terms of strength and stuff. Like, dude, you're on a different level than a lot of humans. But no. But
seriously,
to your question,
about,
it's the same question.
Think about it though, like, just in general, because I'm just talking to the people that.
No, trust me. I know your question. I know your question, but it's the same thing that people say about David Goggins. It's the same thing that people that anybody says about anybody that does anything hard. But here's my answer to it, I guess. There is a difference between people's genetic potential. There's a difference between the gifts that people have, what they decide to pursue, how much energy they put into certain things, and what they are capable of. Maybe people are capable of different things, but the one factor that you can control, and the only thing that you can control, is your effort, like we talked about. If during the 100 miles, you gave 100% effort and you fall over and you can't even crawl another inch, then you've given everything you had, and maybe you got 60 miles, you should be happy because you reached the boundaries of what your potential is. Even for you and I, we did not make it to the NFL. We walked on out of the blue. We didn't have a scholarship. We didn't do this, and this. We did the best we could to the best of our ability, which is why we're able to speak and not have any regrets about the things that we did. But that doesn't mean you always get the result. So for me, it goes back to the same thing of like, the David Goggins situation. People think he's this insane superhero. And even me and you were talking about at the beginning of this thing, how does he have the time for that? That's insane. But then you think about it and he'll tell you his story. He was fat. He was overweight. He was just in the same scenario a lot of you people were. He just decided to start giving 100% to everything he was doing. And I think the way you can make that switch in your life, if you are somebody who is in that bucket, who's sitting there like, well, it's easy for you to say, Nick, you're 235 pounds and are able to run 100 miles and bench press 225 30 times. It's easy for you to say but they don't know you've worked your ass off your entire life. They don't know all the work that you've put in. The thing I would tell those people is they're not far away, because most people give 80 to 90%. They give enough to be average. They give enough to get by in life. Some people do worse. Some people do a little bit better. But most people that's just like 5 or 10% away of that extra amount of just truly giving everything they have from being, right there at that point where they're really proud of themselves. They're really like, wow, I really gave all my effort. Because most people can get away in life and they're like, they get away with 80%. And, maybe they're pretty successful with 90%, 95%, but they've never truly been like, all right, what's it like if I go out on this run tomorrow and I really give 100%? Like, I'm not thinking about tomorrow. There's no such thing as I have my workout tomorrow. It's I'm giving 100% today and we'll see what happens the rest of my life. Like this is the run. I'm running 16 miles and no stops, no water, as hard as I possibly can. We'll see what happens. Not that many people do that on a consistent basis. There's people like me and you who will do the 100-mile or push ourselves to the limit, but we're not as consistent as David Goggins is doing it. He's wringing that towel out every single day, or he's wringing that towel out at least 5 days a week or 6. We're doing it once, twice a month. Other people are doing it maybe once a year. And that difference that's what I'm talking about. It's effort versus the result. And I think that's where you'll never get the optimal result every single time, but you can give the optimal effort every time.
Exactly. I think like just adding on to that, effort is probably number one. I would say I think it's very dangerous to get into the habit of comparing or thinking of an absolute, in the sense of like my 100% is your 100%. Like my whatever is some people's 50%.
Exactly.
And vice versa. And so, instead of saying like, or, just framing it like, oh, well, they can do this, but I can't, it's almost like you said, you're not that far away, one, because all you have to do is just put forth the effort. Like that is it. Like that is like, I feel like that is the most difficult part. And what
most
sets
people are already
apart.
Putting 80% effort in. They're already doing most of the stuff to have a successful day. They're just not doing enough, those extra 3 things.
And why not? Like, you're already going to go through it.
You're already in the pain.
Why not get more out of it? Like, why not get more out of it? And so I think it's really dangerous because people start to get that in that comparison. And I mean, we're even comparing it right now, but it's not necessarily an excuse to think about it in relative terms, but it's like, it's different when he does that for a living.
Well,
compared to, it's like, it's different. It's just like framing it in a way of not comparing your life circumstances and your 100% to theirs.
Well, the difference, I think the difference between the people that say like, like me and you were saying, look at David Goggins. How is he doing these? Like, how does he have time for this? We're saying that because it motivates us. There's a difference between it motivating us to do more and us being the guy, well, it's easy for him to say, and then we don't do anything because we're discouraged from it. Totally different scenarios. These are for the people that are discouraged by seeing other people being successful, and they think I could never do that, when in reality, they really could do something crazy like that. They just have never given that level of effort consistently enough to see that type of result. And David Goggins is a great example, just because think about him. I mean, I could even use myself from when I was in high school and like super weak or like, not performing well at football or whatever. But let's just take David Goggins when he said he was 300 pounds and he could barely run. I think it was like half a mile or a mile. He would run that half mile or mile and then he would have to stop and he would go home. And then the next day he would run a mile and he would have to stop and he'd go home. At that point in his life, that was 100%. He had started taking the steps, and 100% for him is a mile. But now look at him in his life. 100% for him is 200 miles every 2 weeks. A 200-mile run every 2 weeks. The bar changes as you start putting in the effort. So there are times in your life, like Nick, I'm sure you go through this too. I'm sure we all do. We were just talking about it before we even hopped on. Is like there's some days where you're holding the line, or it wasn't 100% effort day. It was, I did my workout. Yeah, sure. I did my meditation, or I did a little bit of work, whatever you had to do to get the day done. But you didn't push and grind it out on and give everything you had that day. Like that, there are those days too, but I think a lot of people haven't even experienced what it's like to really know, like, oh my God, I really gave 100% effort there.
Exactly. And I think there's an important distinction to be made with that, because people think giving 100% is always physical based. Like they think it's only workouts or it's only a 200-mile. It's like, it's a sliding scale, because yes, you might not be feeling too hot, but you still have to give 100% that day to your significant other or your family or your kid or your work or your job. Because
how do you balance that? Is doing 100% in your workout take away from 100% at work? Because it does for me sometimes.
Yeah, I don't. That's a tough one.
Like, how do you juggle the effort? Because so here's my question, because I actually struggle with this. If I go out and it's a Tuesday. Tuesdays are my hardest days usually, or Sundays maybe. Tuesdays I have 4-hour jujitsu and rolling and all this stuff. I have a run. I have a leg workout. Let's just say I have 3 workouts, or I'm doing something crazy. Like for some reason, I just have all these things on this one day. My work is going to suffer. Same way we did our 100-miler. We did 100% effort for a 100-miler. I suffered in the work realm for a few days because of that, because I couldn't give, my mental capacity was so taxed. Is it that I gave 100% effort to that workout? Now my 100% to work that day is just, it's a smaller thing? Or how do you juggle the two?
I view it as probably the latter, being like a sliding scale, to where, let's say, people put, the pie chart, right? Let's just say, just for simple purposes, it's like 50% work, 50% physical activity. Granted, it's not always like that, but let's just say that's the norm, right?
Okay.
You might have days that are 60-40 or 70-30 or whatever that might be in one direction or the other. It's going back to having the awareness of not staying in that lopsided or one-sided approach. It's being able to know when to swing it back. Or let's say Tuesday's your hard day, so you're still giving your effort, maybe not for the same duration. Your workout might take up more time in that day. You're still giving all your effort in that short amount of time. So it's like, all right, I'm going and doing these workouts. I'm doing my run, jujitsu, leg workout. You're giving 100%, but you also know and are framing it as, I'm going to give 100% to the maybe 4 hours that I'm working today, compared to the next day on Wednesday when you go in and you know that you have a longer work day. You just have a longer duration attached to it. You're still giving the
Effort per duration.
100%. Yeah, so it's almost like your durations might change,
But the effort
but
should stay.
your intent is still with that. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily viewing, there's things that might take up more time in your day. Granted, there's balance in that as well, but it's almost like you have to slide it around. You can't keep it all on one, foot on the gas on work, because then you're neglecting maybe family life or maybe your, health and well-being. So it's almost like being able to navigate the schedule.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Cause there are
I don't think
times,
there's sacrifice. I think there's a give and take.
Yeah.
But the intent is always the underlying thing. Like it's always there. Like that workout, that jiu-jitsu session, like I think showing
You're trying to give 100.
It's the effort. It's the effort. Yeah. It's like some people think like,
not the
you
performance,
going in there
it's the
and just
effort.
like, yeah, like it's not you dying in a workout, meaning you gave 100%. It's what is asked of you that day. You gave it what you had. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and some days you have more than others. Like some days you have more to give than others.
Yes, correct. But it's all relative. It's all relative.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's the thing. So now the problem with saying some days you have more to give than others is the problem a lot of these people are in is they're in that, well, maybe I just don't have that much to give. And there are days where you do need to test yourself too. And so you do need to have that day, try that 100 miler. So, hey, this isn't my 100% effort. I just told Nick right before I hopped on here yesterday for Thanksgiving. It's a holiday. Everyone, likes to chill out. Not 100% day for me. And today, because of yesterday being lethargic and, I did my workout or whatever, but just work-wise, it wasn't 100% day. And today wasn't a 100% day either. So I know that about myself, and I can now fix whatever is going wrong because I'm open and honest to say, look, Nick and I have done this, and this in our lives. We've run 100 miles, or I've worked really hard on this business project, whatever it is. I know what working hard and giving 100% is for me. So if I'm consistently falling below that line, then I think so many people need to just break through for that one day or a couple days just to figure out what does it feel like to actually give the 100% effort. And how do you stay?
It has to be something directed towards, or I guess it has to be based on something that they care about.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have any personal attachment to it, or you don't have any self-fulfillment to what you're doing, then it's like,
why
would you give 100%? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it's just more energy you're wasting, in your opinion.
Exactly. And so it's so easy to justify that because it's just like human nature. Why would you do something that's not going to, benefit you, your family, whatever, to the nth degree that you would want, So I think it's,
the ultra runners are lucky, man, because they all want to know what they're made of. That's why they're doing it. They're doing it to figure out, for most of them at least, that's what it feels like whenever we talk to them out there. They're out there to figure out, what am I made of? Like, how far can I really go? So if that's not an interest for somebody at all, you really you got to find something, right? Like you got to find something that gets you going. It doesn't have to be your passion or your life's mission. Just think about what you're interested in. Try to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Because you got to think about it too.
Right.
Like there are, just on the opposite side of the coin, like some people, like their goal or view or mission is maybe art-based, or maybe, I don't know, in literature or in scholarly journalism. It's like, that is their thing. So that is their main focus, and then it's like exercise or, you know, other things are on the side. So there might be a hierarchy of what you truly care about, you know. There, you know, I just don't think that it's, like you said, everything that you do isn't always what you want to do,
Yeah.
but it's just putting forth the effort in whatever it is that you're doing because you're doing it. Like,
Yeah.
you either signed up for it or you have to do it. So why not do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't
No,
know. Like, I think,
that's the right theory, because it's like you can either just like do the 80% and float through and, you know, get the 80% result and be in the same pack with everyone else, or you could just see what happens if you just give 100% on all the stuff you do. And again, that doesn't mean the result is going to be the one that you're hoping for and expecting. It just means that you're going to not have any regrets later on because you did give 100%. It's like
because regret
minimizing
is
regret.
regret. Yeah, regret is literally the most crippling thing in my mind. Like, and you know, the decisions that I make, like, I'm not trying to make them out of fear. And I don't know, it's just like my fiance and I always talk about. It's like we never want to do anything. One, the things that we do now, or the things, let's say the things that we, you know, have done, we don't want those things to be the best things in our life for the
I
rest of our life.
know. I
Because
know.
then it's like, well, then what do you have to look forward
It's kind
to?
of
So,
depressing, right?
right. So you do not want that.
Always looking back on the past is like
Right.
depressing. Even, I mean, they could be great memories, but you don't want to always be living in the past, you know?
Right. They can be like the best time in that moment of your life, but not the best time of your life. Cause it's like, what do you have
Yeah.
to look forward
Yeah.
to? Like,
Yeah. And
so I don't know.
that's something that Sadhguru talks about. He says like depression is when people are stuck living, you know, negative experiences of the past over and over again. And anxiety is, you know, basically you're stuck anticipating negative events of the future. So basically, because humans are intelligent and they can use their memories and their imagination, memories from the past and imagination to project the future, he's basically saying people's own intelligences have turned against them. And now they're depressed about the past, anxious about the future. And because of those two things, they're not living in the present moment, in which case makes them either depressed and or anxious. And that's why, you know, you end up in a situation where, like you said, imagine if you're thinking about those past situations, Nick, and it's not Ohio State football and all these good memories. It's all this negative stuff that you regret because you didn't give 100% effort. I think me and you are super blessed and super lucky that for some weird reason we decided to actually try for the things we wanted when we were younger, before we knew any of this stuff, or, you know, before we had learned anything about life. And we were just like, well, we might as well just try, at least just try. Because even if we never, you know, succeeded at the 100 or succeeded in anything, you know, at least we tried. I can't regret the fact that we failed, as long as we gave enough effort to feel like we wouldn't regret that situation. So I just feel like we're super lucky to be able to look back on positive memories. And some people are, unfortunately, they're looking back on negative memories and regrets. And if that is the scenario, you just got to use that as like, hey man, let's start building good memories for the future now. Like, let's not keep creating these same and dwelling on these same past, you know, regrets.
Yeah. Cause then it's toxic. It's toxic. Sorry. I have something in my eye right now. I promise I'm not
Tearing up.
crying.
He's tearing up on us, guys. um, so let me guide us back here to the topic of our conversation, which is
Right.
really we're trying to get to the bottom of what is more difficult, our experience together, because we've done all these things so far kind of together. Some of the hardest moments in our life have been together, which is a really unique, cool way to look at this. So between one of the toughest scenarios, which is fall camp, and one of the toughest scenarios, the 100-miler, I think we've determined so far, we're both in agreement that the 100-miler was the hardest thing we've done so far, correct?
Yes. Yep. Herma.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think it's like we talked about, they're very different, but the 100-miler I think takes the cake. One thing I will say though is that marathon that we did.
I was gonna say, if you didn't bring it up, I was gonna bring it up.
Yeah, we did a marathon. I mentioned this earlier. We did a marathon, which was 26.2 miles, but we did it without stopping, which I don't think is that crazy. I think a lot of people do marathons without stopping, but like I'm talking about not 1 second of stopping, like not stopping to tie
Not
your
walking,
shoe, or
not
not like
walking, not yeah.
no walking at all. Like
No
no
bathroom
walking,
breaks,
no
yeah.
stopping, no bathroom breaks. That was so difficult. That's in the running of these three things for some reason for me. I think it's number 3.
It is 3. Yeah, I would say 3.
Yeah, but it's number 3. That's pretty crazy.
I think it was just like such a shock to our system because it goes back to that fear of the unknown. Like we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. So each, 0.1 miles past the half marathon point was new and unexpected. And like, you're just trying to survive it basically. Yeah. So the cramping was pretty brutal. It was like probably 90 degrees, 92 degrees.
Yeah, that was so hot.
It was very hot. We were
midday.
Well prepared. Yeah, midday. Yeah, we started out early.
Well, it just took us forever to finish the marathon.
Right, it just took us forever.
My stomach killed during that, so that was tough for me.
You drank out of some janky water bottle that had I don't know, like probably some.
I don't know it. But that for some reason that lives on as number 3 in my opinion as the hardest challenges so far. What's next? We've done some good weightlifting challenges through football. We've done some physical challenges in sports from football. We've done these endurance ones, these 100-miler and marathon. What's next on the agenda?
I would love to compete in a few triathlons with the Ironman being the big beast.
Okay.
Kind of something to set the eyes on. I think it goes back to the trend that what we've been doing. It's like identifying things of interest, things that challenge us mentally, physically, and might not be amazing at them right now, but it's almost like working towards that or learning a new skill. It's something that's unique. It's different to us. It presents it as a new challenge. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited learning about a new sport, being able to connect with a new group of people. I'm all for it.
Shout out Big Runners Club.
BRC, Big Runners Club.
Yeah. Nick has a group called Big Runners Club, so everybody make sure you join that.
Check us out. It's a fun community.
So when's Ironman, by the way?
There are several. So there's several that are in the States. There's some abroad, but I won't be traveling for that due also to COVID. But I know there's one. I want to say it's in Texas. I forget which part of Texas. I know it's like April 24th is one that we're I'm kind of setting my eyes on.
Yeah.
I believe there's 1 or 2 others in the month of May or June. It's tough right now because all of last year's races got moved to this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of them are TBD. Some of them are kind of being moved around. Maybe they might be in one area, but they were moved last minute. So I'd probably say in the late spring or summer.
Okay.
Is kind of the goal.
So we'll plan on that. For the viewers out there, we will be hitting an Ironman next year. It sounds like at probably around late April, I would imagine. April would be a good time frame. So Derek and I, we've been doing jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai.
Yeah, so
and that
you guys have been
that's been
beating up on each other.
We've been legally trying to kill each other the past little while now. So that's been of interest for me. I don't know if we did compete in jiu-jitsu. I may try to compete in something else at some point, but
you say Muay Thai or no?
I don't know. I
Or
would
was
probably
that, what
rather
was it?
do MMA than Muay. I mean, Muay Thai is what like we train at the gym,
Yeah,
but you kind of mix that and jiu-jitsu and
gotcha.
you get MMA. But
Hey, why not,
yeah,
man?
I don't know what the future is for that. We've taken a lot of head beatings from football already, so um, I don't know. I have a lot of fun doing it though, so that could be something for the next year. But man, I really want to do another ultra. Derek and I are talking about that. We have to before you get married in August.
April or August. Jeez, wow.
Oh God, you don't. I know your marriage day. You don't.
We said April for that, and my A
Emily.
started with an A. Yeah, I'm gonna be in the
No.
doghouse, man. I'm gonna be sleeping outside tonight.
Yeah. No. Before August, we have to do. Well, actually, that's perfect because before your wedding's like almost on the same day we ran our 100-miler last year, and we made a pact that we got to do 100-miler per year. So we have to hit 100-miler before your wedding. And
Yeah, it has to be with significant time before, because
no,
if I
it
can't
has to because I'm
walk
going to be
down the
leaving.
aisle,
Yeah.
I'm like crawling down. Yeah, I need significant time to recover.
I say we do this because if we hit an Ironman in the end of if we hit an Ironman like end of April or like beginning of May, we'll be in great shape. We'll be in great shape at that point to hit.
Hopefully.
Well, yeah, true. If it's anything like this last time, we didn't prepare very much. But no, we'll hit one of those, and then if we can we could do it like what, June maybe. I would say June would be ideal.
Yeah, I'll be graduated by then.
Yeah.
Carefree, no worries.
Late June, and then we just relax July.
Yeah, me see, dude, we got a bachelor party too, so we gotta make coincide that as well.
Yeah. No, we'll do that earlier.
Or it could be our who knows.
Dude, that's gonna be
surprise groomsmen. We're going on a race.
100-mile race.
Yeah.
We're at Jackson's. We're just running. We're at his bachelor party, and we're like, yeah, we're just gonna go on a quick little 8-mile run. We'll be back, holding up the whole bachelor
we
party.
Saw that like deer or moose or what was that? Remember, we thought it was like fake.
Yes. That horse. There was a horse that we thought was. We thought it was a statue. Thought it was a horse statue.
It looked silver.
And then it literally looked fake. And then it just moved. And I've never seen you jump so.
Oh, dude. Made me have to go to the bathroom, dude. I had to drop a deuce in the woods.
Right. Yeah. On a real note, how many times between me, you, and Derek have we now had to go to the bathroom in the middle of a race or a run?
Countless. I thought it was like, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to make it home. Like, I have to be close, like, or wherever we're at. Like, I had to be close to a friend's house. I have to go to the bathroom so bad. Now I'm like, all right, is there a tree line? Like, can I just like go quick and relieve myself and
sometimes you just can't control yourself anymore. Your body just gives up.
Leave it as it lies.
We will we'll close this one out here. Is there any last words you want to say before this was my first ever guest, so you'll be my returning guest, my on the podcast, first ever. Nick Seme, round of applause. Wow. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Any last words you got?
Always a pleasure. Appreciate everything you've done for me, and looking forward to what is
likewise
next for us. So super excited.
Yeah. Excited to see what we tackle next. All right, fellas. We will see you guys in the next video. Subscribe. Make sure you guys stay tuned for the podcast. We're gonna get some nice guests on here. We got to do one, me, you, and Derek recap of the race.
Absolutely. So that will be. That'll be like a comedy show. So
yeah, it'll be nice. All right. Alrighty, fellas. We'll catch you in the next one. Subscribe. Peace. Hold on, let me click this.